You're lost in space. So much is unknown. And you don't know which way to look or in which direction to go. Suddenly, the alarms on the ship go off. Bright flashing lights and loud horns are all over the place. You must do something fast before you get lost in space. What do you do? In April 1970, the gist of the American-Vietnam War and the disbandment of the famous British band The Beatles were making headlines. Meanwhile, the news published on the weather page was about the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, preparing to launch the third lunar landing attempt. No one was really paying that much attention to the Apollo 13 space mission. But little did everybody know that Apollo 13 would soon take over headlines and dramatically impact history. Before Apollo 13 and its mission. Before that, let's first time travel and meet the other Apollos, Apollo 11 and 12, that inspired the third moon landing attempt. The 1960s, the year of the iconic polka dot printed fabrics, chain belts and medallion necklaces. It was also the year of the legendary space race, a competition between the good old rivalries of the Soviet Union and America. Their goal? Oh well, it's literally an out-of-this-world finish line, as it was a competition to see who could first land on the moon. In his speech, former American President John F. Kennedy even vowed America
to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
The Apollo program was in line of American human space flights that resulted in man landing on the moon. Apollo 11 was the first manned mission to land on the said heavenly body, and it launched on July 16, 1969. The mission lasted 3 days. It was the first time humans walked on the moon.
First set foot upon the moon, July 1969.
Yes, you can say America won the legendary race. Afterward, Apollo 12 flew on November 14, 1969.
ABC's live coverage of the mission of Apollo 12.
This expedition likewise landed on the moon and returned to Earth safely. Since the two Apollo missions were so successful, NASA wanted to return to the moon. This time, their mission is to explore the Frau Mauro region and collect samples. The Frau Mauro is a moon crater or hollow-shaped hole. It is about 80 kilometers or 50 miles in diameter. To put it into context, it is 85 times bigger than the land area of Manhattan. Inside the spacecraft. The Apollo spacecraft was what made it possible for astronauts to set foot on the moon. The Saturn V rocket was in charge of getting the astronauts into orbit. It stands at 363 feet. To put the Saturn V in perspective, it is taller than the Statue of Liberty, which stands only 305 feet tall. The Saturn V launched from Cape Canaveral in Florida. Mission Control, based in Houston, Texas, controlled all aspects of the mission from takeoff to completion of the mission. On top of the rocket is the actual spacecraft. The spacecraft was in 3 parts. The conical command module is where the crew spends most of their time. It is where they eat and sleep. The cylindrical service module stores essential components and supplies for nearly the entire lunar mission. The lunar module, or LM, can carry 2 astronauts to the moon's surface. The crew. For NASA employees, the phrase teamwork makes the dream work is completely true. The mission aims to send 3 astronauts on a journey to the moon. Commander James Jim Lovell commanded Apollo 13 and was responsible for getting the crew to their destination. Lovell boarded the Apollo 13 mission as the most veteran astronaut in the world at the age of 42. He's the first person to have flown twice to the moon. Fred Hayes, who operated the lunar module, was the second astronaut. Hayes' only flight to space was on Apollo 13, yet he's one of only 24 people who have done so. Command Module pilot John Jack Swigert was the third astronaut selected for this flight. Swigert made his first flight into space in Apollo 13, joining the crew just 48 hours before liftoff, when original Command Module pilot Ken Mattingly fell ill with German measles. All 3 pilots were first trained as fighters and test pilots, and their prior work would essentially prepare them to stay calm for what the future had in store for them. Superstitious 13. Legend has it that 7 is the lucky number, but the number 13 says anything other than that. Breaking a mirror on Friday the 13th is bad luck. Having 13 guests at a dinner party is unlucky, and most people avoid getting married or making significant decisions on days connected with this ominous number. Many people avoid dealing with the number 13 because, hey, who would want to have bad luck, right? Marilyn Lovell, Jim Lovell's wife, was not spared from this belief.
It did bother me, yes. And I said, well, what happened to 14?
However, NASA's mission control is no place for superstition. In space, we don't have any superstitions. In fact, according to Mission Control Lead Flight Director Gene Kranz, NASA scheduled the Apollo 13 flight for 1:13 p.m. or 13:13 in military time.
3,
0. We have commit and we have liftoff.
The epic story of the successful failure. Lo and behold, on April 11, 1970, Saturn V launched at 2:30 p.m. As if an omen of things to come, one of the Saturn V rocket's engines prematurely breaks down in the middle of the launch.
A booster reports that the inboard engine shutdown was a bit early.
In response to this, Mission Control has had to perform quick calculations. According to their estimates, the surviving engine of the rocket can still fly the crew to the moon. 2 days into the mission, April 11th and 12th, so far everything were going smoothly. The calm before the storm, if you will. NASA even televised some of the astronauts' activities in space live, yet no major networks aired it. Still, no one's interested in what they perceive to be just another typical moon landing.
This is the crew of Apollo 13. Wishing everybody there a nice evening.
April 13th, 1970, 55 hours, 53 minutes, and 18 seconds into the mission, the unthinkable happened. A sound you don't want to hear 200,000 miles far away from Earth. A loud bang on the vast sea of space. The service module's oxygen tank number 2 exploded, leading oxygen tank number 1 to fail as well. Regular supplies of water, electricity, and lighting were cut off in the command module. Immediately, Jack Swigert radioed Mission Control and said,
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
"Houston, we've had a problem," a phrase repeated by Lovell,
Houston, we've had a problem.
confirming they indeed had a problem at hand. A phrase that would highlight Apollo 13 from the weather page to headlines. A phrase that has now been etched into NASA's history when asked about Apollo 13. Opposite of how calm the astronauts' voices were, the mission control was in total disarray back here on Earth. Even their controllers acknowledged that they are having issues. NASA might lose 3 of its great astronauts at any time. It appears Murphy's Law applied to the Apollo 13 mission. Anything that may go wrong will go wrong. Warning lights were going crazy. 2 of the 3 fuel cells, which were the spacecraft's main source of electricity, had failed. 1 oxygen tank seemed to be fully empty. The second tank's oxygen supply was running low. To top off, the final oxygen tank was leaking oxygen gas rapidly. The mission to go to the moon is not on the list anymore. Instead, it was now a rescue mission. Now the golden question is, how will they get them home? A, by direct import, where they will turn up in front of the moon and be home in a day and a half. The drawback is that it would require the 3 astronauts to use the main engine, which is close to the oxygen tank explosion. If the main engine fails, the spacecraft could crash to the moon's surface. Or B, where they will circle the moon and take the long route home. The catch is that before they even reach Earth, they might run out of air, water, and power. For lead flight director Gene Kranz, he stated,
"And it was purely in a gut feeling that says, go around the moon, take your chances, trust your team to find the answers."
Option B it is. With no time to spare, Mission Control needs to act and decide fast. Remember the lunar module, where it has its own independent needed supplies for the moon landing? Well, it's what the Apollo 13 space crew used as a lifeboat. However, the lunar module isn't fit to enter the Earth's atmosphere, as it would just get burned on its descent. So what they did was, Swigert powered down the command module and saved the remaining oxygen and necessities as much as they could while they powered up the lunar module to buy time. Again, another problem had arisen with their life at stake. The lunar module was built for only 2 people. There were 3 of them, and the air filters were already maxed out. Too much carbon dioxide on the ship could kill them. They can easily get some air filters from the command module, yet it's in the wrong shape. The command module's square canisters were incompatible with the lunar module's round ports. Engineers of Mission Control back on Earth needed to think about what the astronauts could do by only using supplies available on the spaceship. Using plastic bags, cardboard, and duct tape, Mission Control came up with a method to fasten the command module canisters to the lunar module system. The method worked and saved their lives. 4 days after their excruciating journey leaping the moon, Earth is almost near. As if they were not in danger enough, the spacecraft was drifting off its orbit track, which could lead the astronauts to get lost in space forever. With the teamwork and even help from NASA's rival, the Soviet Union, they calculated the precise direction and amount of rocket thrust needed to get the spacecraft back on track. The astronauts had to manually launch the rockets while traveling by keeping an eye on the Earth and Moon through the windows. That had never been done before. 4 hours before the Earth, it's time to get back in the command module. A command module had never been switched off in space. Again, engineers on Mission Control needed to devise a way to start it from being frozen due to the coldness of space. Instead of the normal 3 months, flight controllers created the procedures for this invention in just 3 days. With great relief, the command module did power up. After less than 5 hours on Earth, the astronauts unloaded the service module that exploded. The 3 astronauts were able to see the extent of the damage for the first time, and images show one entire panel missing with pieces hanging out. 3 hours before Earth, they ejected the lunar module, which they called the Aquarius. On April 17, 1970, after almost 6 days in space fighting life or death, the 3 astronauts are coming home. The radio communications had been disrupted by the spacecraft's re-entry into the atmosphere. The crew are now left on their own. Everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the response from the 3. 4 minutes of the disruption of radio transmission were anticipated. However, after 1 minute, the crew had yet to respond. 1 minute and 27 seconds had passed.
And welcome home.
Finally, the mission control and the whole world was in joy hearing back again from the Apollo 13 astronauts.
Odyssey Houston, we show you on the mains. It really looks great.
Apollo 13 became famous not for its failed moon landing, but for what it showed about the capacity of human beings to push on despite the misery. It left an important lesson not just for the space sector, but for us ordinary citizens. If Plan A fails, oh well, you have the whole alphabet. Never give up. If we were to ask you whether you would dare to go back into space or just stick around on Earth, what would be your answer? Comment down below. We'd love to hear more of your thoughts about this epic mission.